thank you for staying with us here on the TVC Breakfast Show. Just before the break, we had our in-house analyst, Mr. Abiodun Shomi, talking to us about some of the tactical, technological, and treacherous measures the Nigerian army might have used to rescue the Oriire victims. So before the break, we were discussing the gains that they had made, and you were saying that a lot goes on behind the scenes. Some people are arguing that without the court of public opinion and the pressure that the Nigerian public put on the government, this would not have happened. Do you agree with that?
Well, people should know that what happened would not have been a product of a month's preparation. You know, a lot has been going on behind the scene. Do not forget, we had at a point, we had the president asking the French for some measure of support, you know, on military activities. We had the Americans coming in. And at a point, the Americans felt confident that we can handle the situation. They decided to leave. And after that...
Not all of them. It's just the trainers, those who came to train. But there's still some of them in Nigeria.
Yes, because they're part of the African CENTCOM, which is based in Ghana.
That's right.
So what you see is that what happened couldn't have been an overnight event or planning or whatever. What we see is a product of a systematic approach to this campaign. That, look, we will not negotiate with terrorists anymore. 2, we will not reintegrate terrorists back into the community. 3, we will make sure that every single terrorist is tried, you know, processed through the criminal justice system. 4, their sponsors will be dealt with. And 5, should there be any incident, we're going to have to send in our boys to flush them out. And it's working. And that's what I see the government resting on, to say, look, we would have to renew the hope of people. Do not forget, many people have started complaining of insecurity. Some people were complaining they don't want their children to go to school one way or the other. But now everybody is saying, well, so this is possible. We can do this. Please, Mr. President, let's do it elsewhere. Already in Borno, people are calling for it. So I think while this government, you know, is tough on terrorism, they also need to be tough on causes of terrorism, which is poverty. And they're already doing that. We are seeing that debates are no longer about the economy. All the indices are very positive. We've seen, even in June, our oil production, including condensate, has gone up to 1.57. We've seen a 2.2% increase. You know, so for me, we can see it. It's only with a matter of time. If Nigerians are a bit patient, you can destroy a house in a day. You cannot rebuild it in a day. We will begin to see the gains of tackling all the measures they are taking, you know, to tackle the causes of terrorism, like poverty, like illiteracy, you know. We'll begin to see them manifest.
And speaking of a lot of things that has been going on behind the scenes, remember, that's also part of why General Christopher Musa was appointed the Minister of Defense immediately after his exit, you know, as the Chief of Staff. And when he was the Chief of Staff, he created an agency, an inter-agency, military agency. I'm trying to get the exact name now, because I visited their office in Abuja. In fact, the day I went there, I walked in onto all the heads of our uniform agencies having a meeting. I had to pause a bit, you know, because I was actually invited by the DG to come see him. So a lot really has been going on behind the scenes as to what victory we are seeing today. But there's something you mentioned as part of the agenda for our security tightening: refusal to
negotiate?
No. Bringing these guys back into society. Reintegrating them. Thank you. The Senate stood up and said this practice of
reintegration,
rehabilitation.
There's another military term that is keeping my head now.
Say it in words.
De-radicalization.
Thank you. You got it now. We have practiced this for more than a decade now. It has not yielded the right, you know, success that we wanted to see. Now that we have nabbed these 8 guys who were the players in this matter, what should happen to them?
Okay. What led to that issue of the radicalization and the thinking that drove the issue of reintegration of terrorists back into the community was the success of the MEND operation, you know, by the Nigerian government. You remember when Yar'Adua was the president, you know, there was a kind of engagement and rapprochement with the Niger Delta militants, who in any case were merely attacking economic targets, not kidnapping people. And eventually, they decided to work out a process to get them reintegrated back into the community. So along the line, that became a success. And along the line, some people also felt, look, why can't we try the same approach with Boko Haram? But we've seen, of course we did. We tried it, but we've seen how it has gone badly wrong, in the sense that even those, there were a lot of arguments about those reintegrated back into the military. Can you really de-radicalize somebody who is, it's the religious ideology is driving him to even reject Western education?
Right.
You know, so to what extent can you really do that? And how do you know that these same guys, you know, the ISWA people, are not deliberately telling some of their people, go and surrender, tell them you are ready to get radicalized and get reintegrated and become a source of logistics, you know, for them. So a lot of issues came up over a period of time, and that is why you see the Senate now saying, hang on a minute, we need to rethink this. Yes, it worked with the Niger Delta militants, but it has failed with ISWAP and Boko Haram people.
Well, Mr. Shomi, I'm curious about your stance. Sorry, Ibrahim, because on one hand, I do know that you're not an advocate of capital punishment. On the other hand, you are saying that these people should not be reintegrated. So do they just become a burden on the average taxpayer in our prison complex?
No, the issue is about risk assessment. How do you de-radicalize somebody who is, it's just like somebody trying to persuade me to embrace death penalty. I would never in my life.
That's right, because of your experience.
Yeah.
But all the same, Mr. Shomi.
So it's a bit more complex in that sense. So how do you radicalize people? How do you evaluate the impact
and what
on them?
What is the metrics of the assessment that one will do is essentially what you're asking?
Yes. It's a bit very complex.
Okay, Mr. Shomi, do we know? Do we know that? Do we know that some of these Boko Haram members, they've actually kidnapped doctors, they've kidnapped midwives, they've kidnapped people
pastors,
who are
religious leaders,
and they use them to train their own fighters. You understand? We understand that Leah Sharibu, who, of course, whose return we've been waiting, we've been fighting for, and all of that. They said that she's been trained to become a midwife, where they help them to midwife women who are pregnant and all of that within the Boko Haram camp. And those medical doctors also train their own fighters to treat the people with gunshot wounds and et cetera, and they have professionals among them. Those are the people. Do you not feel that the Nigerian soldiers are saying, no, we need to profile them, and when we see that these are genuine people, they were only kidnapped, arrested one way or the other, to the what's it called, for the use of the terrorists. That is why we want to rehabilitate them back to the society. Don't those ones.
But for the main gun carriers,
the main gun carriers will be shot on sight.
And I've said it before, sir, before you answer, I've made this comparison before. There's a difference between a child soldier who was radicalized, born into that life, a captive who has now perhaps embraced that way of life, as opposed to a low-down, radical thought leader who is unshaken in his beliefs. There is a difference, but we have to answer the question. If we're not for death penalty, if we are not for reintegration, we have to answer the question, what are the metrics of successfully assessing these people to decide who gets what punishment or treatment meted out to them? Because that's what the Nigerian public is asking.
Absolutely. But we should always remember one thing. There can never be peace without justice. Justice for the victim. We must always remember that. What about the victims? People who have been killed, either by child soldier or by adult soldier, does not matter, by terrorists. What about the families of those people? They have children. Are we really getting the balance right? Are we giving thoughts to the victims? Or we are thinking about the perpetrators? It's very important. What about the soldiers? You have our soldiers on a daily basis, laying down their life to die to protect us, to neutralize these terrorists. Why aren't we thinking about the soldiers?
Maybe you're not thinking of death sentence, through the court. You're thinking of death sentence to be done in the forest.
No.
Because that's what you're sounding like.
Look, it's acceptable if a soldier's life will be at risk or a police officer. They have the right to defend themselves. If it means neutralizing that person, they have the right to do that. What they don't have a right to do is to, without any risk to themselves, to extrajudicially kill the defenseless person. So in that situation, they're supposed to take them in. So nobody's advocating for extrajudicial killing.
That's right.
But in my view, if a soldier's life is not at risk or a police officer is not at risk, then arrest the person. If he's found guilty, let him spend the rest of his life in prison.
Using
Well,
our-
That's what,
using
that's
our
what
own
she's
money.
saying, because I asked her
Eating from my
what
taxpayers'
should
money.
happen to these 8 guys.
Tim, I must say we live to debate another day, but from
Right.
this morning and this moment, our children are back home, and we
Yeah.
are very grateful
We'll convert
for
you
that.
to accepting death sentence.
No. We just have to think about the
Team,
victims.
welcome home to our
Right,
children.
right.
Coming up, we'll discuss the emotional effects of abduction on children and teachers, the role of therapy in their recovery, and how families, schools, and communities can support survivors as they return to everyday life. Stay with us for this very moving conversation.